Hello and welcome to A Celtic World, the YouTube channel and podcast for Celtic fans all over this great big planet. From Chapel Hill to Drumchapel, from South Bend to South Alloa. Wherever you are in a Celtic world, I've said that wrong. Wherever you are in this great big world, you're part of a Celtic world. And laughing along at my misfortune today, we have Paul and Ian. Let's go to Ian. We haven't seen Ian for ages. Ian in South Wales, how's it going?
Good to get the mistakes out in the pre-season, Gav. So get them all out. I'm well. I've not been on since I was on with Terry from the CSC. I've been enjoying a nice little break from one or two kind of Celtic outlets, but getting back into it now, getting into the groove of pre-season. And yeah, I don't know. I like. It feels, we'll go on to talk about it, but there's good things, there's bad things, there's things that like we're used to by now, and yeah, there's another little meltdown brewing across the city. So yeah, it's a fun time.
It is a fun time, and it's always a fun time when Paul's in town. Paul, how's it going?
Oh, that's very kind of you, Gaff. You're not usually as nice to me as that. Yeah, I'm good. It's absolutely pissing it down here. So for all the people that get jealous when I say it's 30 odd degrees and 40 odd degrees, it's pretty miserable. But I suppose we're deepest winter, so it's not all bad. Yeah, life's good, and like Ian, just getting back into it. Been practicing some Zen pre-season stuff, so we'll discuss that later as well, I'm sure.
We definitely will. And hail to everybody in the comments. Thank you for joining us, as always. Good to see you. Stephen is supposed to be joining us later, but he's been held up at work, but hopefully he'll drop in at some stage. So this is, unlike our other summer shows, this is a bit more like the usual, even though we don't have a game to talk about. But we don't have a special feature to play, a CSC to talk to, or, history to dig into. What we're going to be talking about is, well, first of all, just that, our summer season, what we've been doing at the Celtic World over the past few episodes. And then we'll have a little look at the USA tour for Glasgow Celtics. And then we will consider, as Paul was mentioning, transfer tau or tantrums. How are we coping with the stresses and strains of the off-season and all that goes with it? And then just to make ourselves feel better, we're going to reference what Ian just mentioned, and that is the chaos across the road, because there's a lot of joy to be had there. I'm pretty sure it's good for one's mental health to indulge in a bit of schadenfreude, is it not? So our summer season, well, Ian, have you watched many of these episodes? I'll ask you as I
yeah, I watched a couple. I've been I like to put the podcast on when I cook. So like, yeah, I kind of go through them when I'm doing bits and pieces like that. I think the last one I watched or listened to was the Proud Huddle, which was a good one. I didn't watch the one with myself, ironically. I don't know. I kind of feel a wee bit weird doing that, to be honest with you.
Feel a bit weird watching yourself? Well, let's have a look at them, shall we? So yeah, the first one we did really during the off season was with Soul Brothers, talking to our friends in South Korea. That was interesting, especially your man Tom's accent, Scottish accent for a Korean guy. Didn't pick it up in Scotland. And then we did how to engage in Celtic's worldwide fan base, that conversation all about, what the platform could be that reaches out to all the fans. Celtic TV.
I thought that was a good. I think that was a good one, Gavin. I enjoyed the. I can't remember the guy's name that came on to talk about it from the angle, but it was quite poignant that I think it was 2 or 3 weeks after this, then Celtic sent out the big survey asking a lot of the kind of similar questions that we asked in that. So I may have dropped that into the survey and told who's ever looking at it to watch that one.
I think a few people did. Said, how could Celtic TV be better? Well, watch this episode. And then the next one is, well, there's Terry, the South Wales #1 CSC. That was a good episode. It's very interesting to find out about the guys from South Wales. Terry, if you remember, Paul, was discussing his life as a jobbing brickie abroad. And he mentioned the hit TV show of the 80s, Of Wiedersehen Pet, which kind of took over the live comments. Everyone was just talking about Of Wiedersehen Pet for ages. And I've actually been watching it since then. You know, I was like, that was such a good show. And Steve and I were talking about it, and I found it. I have a Fire Stick, and I can find it through that, but it's also on YouTube. I don't know if it's accessible to people in the UK. But yeah, I've been watching Of Wiedersehen Pet. It was great fun. It came out originally in 1983. So, I mean, I can barely remember it coming out, and my dad wouldn't let me watch it, and even though I wanted to. But then in the first episode, I couldn't work out why he didn't want me to watch it so much. But in the first episode, they visit a brothel. And about the third episode, they go to a porn cinema. And then there's porn mags everywhere and posters on the walls. You know, it's little wonder he was like, reaching for the remote control or whatever. If he had
the remote control. I was just wondering what he's reaching for with all that porn around.
So I was ushered out of the room. Maybe my dad sat and watched it. Like, I once discovered he put the password on for topless darts. He used to say topless darts. Oh, turn that off. Here's Gavin. But turned out he'd been watching it. Anyway, that's another thing. Another thing that has helped me get through the off season and get my football fix is this. Have you both been watching this?
Yep.
Watched up until a point. It's the kind of the fallback one when we want something a bit lighter. Me and my wife is from North Wales, not from Wrexham, from Bangor. So anything that promotes Wales even slightly, I can get her to watch. I can have a horror film so long as there's a Welsh actor in it. So this is our kind of one that we watch and relax a bit. I think the aim is for the next season, I think they're almost going to do it in real time. I think that's the ambition. So I think that'll be quite interesting to see how quickly they can turn it around.
Yeah, my missus says she hates football, but she, funnily enough, is quite interested in watching this with them two on it. I think if it's vaguely reality TV, she'll watch it. So this is the only way to get football into a TV show that she'll watch with me. But yeah, I really enjoy it. I like how they cover all parts of the town and the club, and pick out characters around the community and stuff. I think they've done it really well.
Really well. I mean, they couldn't have done a better job. I was watching it kind of expecting Americans coming in, not really knowing anything and trying to be all American sportsy about it, but not at all.
They totally get, like, to use a phrase Celtic fans love to say, oh, he gets our club. They've totally got that community, and are in it for the right reasons. It certainly looks like, but also hugely ambitious and obviously putting their money where their mouth is. So yeah, be good to see. I know a lot of people in the lower leagues, don't like them because, well, they're throwing money at it and stuff. But fair play, it's probably doing a great job for the local community, and would know more than me on that. But certainly from how it looks like they're doing a great job.
Yeah.
And those are just a couple of little asides. Here's back to our summer season at the Celtic World. We had the Proud Huddle, which was interesting. Wasn't everyone's cup of tea. Had some lively discussion in the comments there. Then we did Mold Breakers, which was looking back at a couple of players from the past. Broke the mold. Green Sunrise on mental health.
Yeah, that was a good one.
The good thing about all of this is so much of this is kind of evergreen content. So if you haven't seen any of these episodes, you can watch them, go back and watch them. They're not necessarily of the moment. It's not like other shows where you go back and they're discussing, oh, we desperately need to replace Bain. We don't have a goalkeeper. Anyway, and then Sydney City CSC. Did you see that one, Ian? Have you watched that one yet?
No, I've not watched that one yet. That was
That's
on
a
the
good one.
on the list for cooking.
That's
we
really
we had some great crack on that, both on air and off. Like that, there was another about half an hour off air afterwards that I wish we'd been recording that, although some of it was probably not suitable for on air. But we actually had a lively discussion. I think it was off air about Tom, because he spent time in Sydney and these guys know him. And he said he was a master of accents. He could switch in and out of American.
Tom from South
Scottish.
Korea.
Yeah, he spent time in Sydney, and he spent. I think the Scottish guys that he was sort of around were when he was in Sydney, a lot of it. So yeah, it was good crack with those guys. And yeah, if you haven't seen that show, really recommend you giving it a look. That both lads were really good and told us a fair amount about their. It's a brilliant club. I've been a visitor there more than once. I spent some time in Sydney down the years, and yeah, they've done it. They've done a grand job, and obviously they were a focal point during the Ange tour as well. So yeah, give it a shout if you haven't already.
So we'll get on to transfers a little later on and talking about individual players and some perhaps controversial opinions that some people have expressed on certain players. If you've tuned in especially for that, that's coming up just a little bit later in the show. All righty. Well, America's the big news, isn't it? Have you been loving watching this whole USA tour thing? The results have been good, but everything around it has been awesome, hasn't it?
Yeah, a lot of content. I kind of feel like you guys, because the games have been so late that I'm just like, I can't, like, a late night for me is like days to recover. So I've been doing it through the highlights, but I think fair play to the club. There's been a lot of content around it. They're obviously getting the players out there to see people and stuff. Our friend Jerry McCulloch, my favorite bit has been someone posted it. They were like, "Oh yeah, we've driven like over 8 hours to get here." Like, and he's talking to this dad and his son and the mum of the family, and he goes, "Oh, did you all come together?" It's like, "No, Jerry, the wee kids took like the plane, the mother took a boat, and the dad drove." What? It's just it's like accidental partridge. It's accidental McCulloch. So yeah, but a lot of the content is really good. And another thing you noticed was the speed of when we played Man City. The speed of Man City to get a package out, highlights package, everything, blah blah blah. They did that way faster than Celtic, and that's where you can see like the financial differences that we have with an English club, even on that level as well. But really good, really enjoyable, good place to tour.
Some funny comments here about parental control of television. Did we all have the same experience whenever people started kissing or something on a show? Like the TV would be turned off, or you'd be snarled at and told to get to your room and things like that. Or did you grow up in more enlightened households?
Yeah, and turn away.
No, I think it was just we all sat like, well, I don't remember us my mum and dad got divorced when I was 12, so I never really remember family foursome watching telly under that age. But certainly when it was just me, my mum and my brother, one, she's pretty liberal, which is good. But there was always that thing in your teenage years, it would be left on, but it'd be sort of awkward. Nobody would say anything. You're just all sitting really still and hoping it would finish so that you could kind of move past. There might be some mild sort of tittering for me and my brother, depending on what it was. But yeah, my mum was pretty steadfast. She wouldn't turn it off. She was like, I'm a pretty liberal.
420 somewhere says a Durex or Body Form advert came on. I would be growling.
It's my life, Dr. Alban. Was that that was a sanitary towel.
Body Form.
Yeah, I think, yeah, brilliant. Anyway, that's a trip down memory lane.
That is funny. Well, let's have a wee look at some of these picks from the States. Oops. Make that bigger.
This was perfect timing with the whole Biden stepping down thing as well. There was some brilliant There was some brilliant memes and general Celtic content post this bit, which is great.
There's all the team at the White House and on a little tour. There's Dyson Maida. It's great for them to see all this. Now here's I wonder is it coming up in the comments? You can see here the comment at the bottom. Visiting genocide enablers. Discuss.
Well, I mean, I think the problem we've got now is there's Adidas with their removal of Bella Hadid. I've got some chats that are now claiming that if we wear any of the official gear, we're basically bombing children. So I think we're in I think we've all just got to take a beat and try and realize what we can affect when we can speak up, and hopefully, I mean, look, we are more fortunate than most. We've got an element of our support that is very vocal in terms of these things and organise things to raise awareness of it. So I think we're probably in a better position than most clubs when it comes to that.
But I mean, going to the White House is hardly,
There's some people it is
hardly
Gavin.
endorsing the current.
This is us in 2024. You have to assume a binary position. You cannot say, well, I can see why that's happening, or I can see why you do this. You're either good or you're bad. And I think there's no more, you don't see it better than on places like Twitter, where people sit right at one end of the spectrum. And if you even deviate from an established set of beliefs, then people come for you. So I think it's, with this, of course, you're going to go and visit the White House if you're in Washington, D.C. It's one of the things. It's, you've got to, like, even our politicians have got to meet with dictators, have got to try and play the political game and stuff like that. You have to have a bit of a
well, to me, this is visiting an historic building rather than shaking hands with the people who make decisions.
Yeah, I mean, if they were all there posing with like MAGA hats, then you could assume that there was some sort of political agenda. But short of that,
even the young boys that have been invited over to join got to go there, including young Brad Turley. Do you know which one he is out of that lot?
I think is he bottom left, rather?
He's the guy from Belfast, so he's the one who's likely to look the least chuffed. If you ask me. So you're right. Bottom left. Everybody else is happy as Larry. He's like, yeah, whatever. White House. There he is there. Going to be keeping an eye on his career, obviously. Did you follow this, that they all went to see a Nationals game? Can we name these three players quickly? Oh, well, you can name those two, certainly.
So did Thiago home in the middle, I think.
Yeah. Look how small they are. The Nationals are Washington's baseball team, right?
Yeah, credit to CCV. You don't see many people tying their hoodie around their waist anymore, do they? I've not seen that for a long old time. That looks really odd.
He's far too young for such a retro move as well. He's like, what is he, 26, and he's pulling that one out of the bag.
Yeah.
At least it's not over the shoulders. That's unforgivable.
That's
Like
a European. That's a European move. You're not going to see that from a guy brought up in the south of England and with American roots. It's not going to happen.
I can't keep up with these comments. I'd like to show some, but I don't know what people are talking about. They're all referencing comments from earlier. This is Palma playing with young soccer players from Let's Play in Maryland.
He's been doing quite a bit. He's obviously one of the Spanish speakers in the squad. So yeah. I saw, I mean, you might have the photo or not, but the pitch invader coming on to see him, King of Honduras, isn't he? So
the Red Scotland there, Paul looking for trouble.
Just said it was Ian that said it was retro. I just joined in. It's quite retro. Yeah, there was even a question in the press conference the other day, the pre-Man City game press conference about, asked Brendan Rodgers straight out. Will he be playing? There's going to be a big Honduran presence in the crowd. And he said something like, he'll definitely have game time. There must be 100 million Hondurans in America because he was super popular in DC as well. So, a fair play.
Red Scotland, I'm not sure if he meant what planet are we living on or what plane are we living on. The answer to what planet we're living on is, of course, a great big flat one. We now know. Okay, there's more Palma. Yeah, very good. Some great scenes. Great scenes from that. That is the sort of players. And then these next set of pictures is to do with the matches. First match was against DC United. Did you catch this story? I wonder. DC United chief started Celtic love affair to wind up his Rangers diehard dad. Now he just can't get enough of the hoops. You follow this?
No, I didn't see that one.
Ali Mackay, who's from
Lewis.
the Isle of Lewis, was a hoops fan as a kid because his dad was a Rangers fan. So just to annoy him, he became a Celtic fan. And
great decision.
Huh?
Great decision.
I've got a friend like that at home whose son, my friend is sort of Liverpool and Celtic, and the kid is Man United and Rangers. And you can see there he had an incredible journey in the game, starting life on the Western Isles and playing for Partick Thistle's youth sides before heading across the US and becoming part of the super agent Stellar Group before making his way as one of the top GMs in the MLS. He's only in his 30s. Well, that's an interesting story, I thought. Now, here's some familiar faces. Lone Star. The Lone Star Celtic trainers. Brock McVeigh, have you come across him? He's quite a name, I think, on Twitter among Americans. I'll just keep flicking through. If either of you have anything to say about the American tour, or the games, you can jump in.
I think, like, from my point of view, the American tour it's brilliant. It's great for the it's great for the club. I'm sure we're making a fair amount of money off it. It's good games to get under the belt, but this is really for the fans. Like, this is the same as when the team came down here a couple of years ago and we got the opportunity. Like, a chunk of us flew from all over Australia. People came from New Zealand, Asia, and there were Celtic fans traveling even all the way from sort of home to come to Sydney to see the team. But for us that are on this side of the world now, it was an opportunity that you don't get very often. I think the last time Celtic were in Australia was, I think, 2012, which landed, or 2011 or 2012, which landed between the times. It was here in 9 and 10, and then back in 13. So. First time in my time of being out here, and I don't think we've been in the States for over 10 years, maybe closer to 13, 14. So brilliant opportunity, and the same, obviously, people are driving and flying from all over the country to get to one of these 3 games to see the hoops. And I think it's just a brilliant opportunity for fans that aren't going to see the club in the flesh very often, the players in the flesh very often.
And
same as down here. Yeah. Well, the games are certainly better than they were here. They were bloody awful here. But we were just pleased to be in the mix and seeing them. But I have found it quite amusing to see all the comments, and you touched on it, Ian, of, if I fell asleep in the 10th minute and stuff like this. This is literally our life week in, week out throughout the season. We're a bit lucky in me and Gavin this time zone where we get the lunchtime kickoffs at a reasonably friendly hour, but any of the 3 o'clocks and 5 o'clocks and definitely the midweek games, they're in the early hours of the morning or nearly time to wake up, and Steve in the East Coast has probably got it even worse than us. So yeah, it probably gives you guys a little bit of more of an insight into quite what it takes to follow the club week in, week out through the season.
Yeah, but I think going back to the games, I think it's been I think DC United obviously was good to have a team that's already kind of quite fit. I was surprised we won so comfortably there, but to play, I think that with going to America, a lot of the the Premier League teams there. So I think it's good to see that, good opposition in Manchester City, good opposition in Chelsea. I think pre-season is ultimately for us a lot about fitness. It's a lot about fitness, always has been, and you have to kind of treat it that way. But I think there's a bit of extra exposure that comes when we play the Premier League teams. I think we always hope we get one in the Champions League for that sort of thing as well, because there is a bit of a rivalry. But yeah, from the first two games been good, some familiar issues there. But at least the team looks to be kind of on track, at least results wise.
Did you see these two meeting again?
Yeah, that was a really nice sort of scene the other night. Because obviously they were both real young lads when I think they were both 18, 19 or something when they played together. Maybe 19, 20. But yeah, good to see them sort of probably reminiscing a bit about those days and kind of maybe pinching themselves a little bit where they've made it in the intervening years. But yeah, I agree with Ian. There's obviously anyone that wants to be a doomsayer will say, oh, City's B team, blah blah blah. It's only pre-season. We're not our strongest side out either. Yes, we're a little bit ahead of them in the sort of pre-season curve, but nearly every single one of those kids would probably be challenging for a place in our team or in our second string, and certainly would be probably better than the majority of teams we'll face domestically this season. So it's good opposition. The result doesn't really matter, but no doubt if we'd got cuffed 2 or 3, 4-0 from City's B side, there'd be even more grief. So we've played well, we've knocked it around, we've rotated what squad is available at the minute. We've got to see some young lads. Some have shown up better than others. And look, there's one or two that there might be a place for them in and around the squad this season, and others, it's probably we've probably seen already, and that's how brutal it is at this level. We've probably seen that maybe it's not their time yet, or possibly ever. But there's some people have sort of really shown up and at least laid down an initial marker, and maybe made a few people sort of doubt earlier opinions, and others probably haven't taken the opportunity that they've been given, however sort of brief it is. And I was chatting to my brother about this, and he's a professional football coach, and we were talking about the fact that sometimes you only get 15-20 minutes to total to make an impact, and if you make an impact in that 15-20 minutes, you'll get some more opportunities potentially, and if you don't, that might be it, or if not forever, then certainly for some time. And yeah, I think to me it's been great to see the young fullbacks. I think they've both shown up decently. I think Anderson at left back, and I don't want to be somebody who is a board apologist, and I am not a board apologist, but we can't have it always. We always say we want youth to be progressed, and then if Anderson gets promoted to be potentially challenging Greg Taylor for the spot this season, a bit like Tierney did, and let's be honest, I'm not saying he's going to be as good as Tierney, but he's showed up okay. He's had the year at Admira, Wacker in Austria, and that's what you want out of a loan season at these clubs, is to get them first team football and see how they show up. He's looked decent in the time he's been on. I think Donovan on the other side has didn't look as good against DC, but in the time he was on the pitch, he looked pretty decent and confident on the ball and happy to play passes in tight spaces. So it's a bit of there's a bit there. Of course, we need to strengthen the squad, but there's a balancing act to be done to give these guys a pathway versus filling the squad with people that aren't much better than them and blocking their opportunities. So we've not done that well, and we need to get better at that. For me, the one that I'm, and I've always liked him, so there is a bias there. But in the relatively short minutes he's had, I've been really impressed with Odin Thiago Home again. He just looks like a good footballer. He plays with his head up. He's happy to take the ball on the turn, in possession. He wants to play forward passes. I hope there's more opportunity for him this season. And it'll be down to him, I think. You know, Rogers' comments on him and Lol, Bosun Lol, he mentioned those two players and he said they had talent, but talent's not enough. And it was a really pointed comment really early on in the preseason. And he basically, to me, it was a kick up the arse to him and the squad around him to say, you know, you need to have more than talent. You need work rate. You need to really want it. And home looks like he does. Hopefully he can kick on. I don't know what's going on with Bosun Lol. He looked okay in the early games, and there was a lot of optimism because he's, you know, he was well fancied by Fleetwood. All their fans are gutted that he was coming back. Obviously, he's in youth teams at Ireland. And he looks like a unit. He looks like an athlete. But in that 20 to come on and then get hooked after 20 minutes against DC in a game where we were cruising, he just looked a mile off the pace. He didn't look, he was jogging around. He didn't look like he had any intensity. His passing was slack. His control, his first touch was poor. And he's a guy I thought, if not this season, and maybe he's somebody that might kick on, and he still might. Like, I'm not writing him off, but he's one that needs to go out on loan again, I think, to either a Scottish Premier League team and mix it every single week in that league and see how he can cut it, and then he can maybe step up next season, or he needs to go to a higher level than Fleetwood Town, because he was at League One, so maybe the Championship is if you can get somebody to take him there and play him every week.
I think, you know, and we might come on to it later with some news that happened last night, but I think this does come down to standards. I think Rogers is kind of free of the baggage of last season when he was coming back, he had a lot to prove and stuff. I think he's free of that baggage now. So I think what that's allowing him to do is now be more of that central point and talk about the standards. You saw things like Vata and Kelly. He's like, well, look, if you're not going to sign the contract, if you're not going to take it, you're not here. So they didn't even, you know, Vata's away. Kelly's not even been brought into the squad. Like you mentioned, he's called out home and Lol early doors. And I think this is all part of, you know, it's very easy to kind of go down in relative terms to perform in Fleetwood when the pressure isn't on you. Do you know what I mean? The thing is, and Roger says a lot, Celtic is a massive club. There's a lot of things that we can accept and we can do, but not having the effort, not having the intensity, not putting it all in is just not going to be acceptable at any level. And you kind of see that across the city over the seasons. When the pressure's off them, they become world beaters. You get guys like Cantwell, who's praised and celebrated for keeping a water bottle off of Hatate. That's their standards. Like, oh, he's kept the water bottle. He's like now our key player. Build the team around him. Just doesn't happen with us. And that's the thing. And what Rodgers will want to do is slowly over time, he'll want youngsters that have the ability, but also want to be there and put in the effort. And I think we're seeing that come out now, because it's, put it this way, it's really bold to just get rid of Vata and not bring Kelly. I think they're, you know, in context, they're pretty big decisions. So, yeah, let's see how it works out, because we are going to need to rely on a squad again. But at least, you know, it's the same. Ange did it in a different way. Ange talked about we never stop, and that was the ethos that he put in. And I think Rodgers has a slightly different take on it. He calls it standards, and he points to people like James Forrest, people like Callum McGregor, and has those standards that everyone has to adhere to. So slightly different way of doing it, but it's the benefit of having, you know, to use the expression, an elite level manager.
Well, speaking of that manager, let's go into the next bit, which is talking about transfers and everything, because what we're talking about there is him dealing with the current team, which was part of his comments. So maybe we should start with those comments and take it from there. So this is Roger saying, well, I had a long meeting with Michael and Chris today, so we know the targets we want to bring in. There's still a long way to go in the window. I think my concentration is that we know what we want to do. We know the priority positions that we want to improve. whilst the club gets on with that, myself and the coaches are really focused on the improvement of this team. So at some point before the end of August, I would expect us to have the players we want in. I'll make it clear to the Celtic supporters, we know we want to improve the squad, and by the end of the window shuts, I expect us to be that. I'm not sure if that's exactly a proper transcription, but you know, the Celtic fan base is all over the place at the moment. They're all over the spectrum. I mean, some people are doing their nut in, sack the board, it's disgraceful, we're in a massive crisis. And others are sitting back saying, relax, there's loads of time to go. And we sort of preface this with a little bit of chat in the WhatsApp group. Ian, you would be, well, where would you put yourself on the spectrum, first of all?
Depends what day it is, depends what hour of the day it is. I think Rodgers there, because there's been a good sign, right? I think bringing in Kasper Schmeichel and then bringing in the Finnish boy, whose name I'm not going to say, Gav, because you'll automatically correct me and tell me what it is. But there looks to be some sort of strategy there and thinking, which is a real positive green shoot for us. I mean, it's almost unheard of. So there's that. And then I think there's also the fact that Rodgers is leaving all of us under no illusion. He knows what he wants. He knows what he needs, right? He's saying the people behind the scenes know this. It is up for them to deliver. And in the instance that they don't deliver, he's got to do plan B, which is get the best out of what he's got. But I don't think there's no one at the end of this window going to be pointing the finger at Rodgers, and he's made 100% sure that's going to happen. So if I was the board in the scouting department, he is technically right. There is, that was, I think that was a couple of days ago, there is over a month left of the transfer window. I just think I wouldn't like to leave it right to the last day. And looking at that there, I think our biggest issue is before Rodgers came in, we got weaker. This season with Ida and Bernardo going out, that team all going as well, we're weaker again. So we're weaker on top 2 seasons in a row, and we really need to sort that. Rodgers has said he needs the 3 strikers. We're kind of technically light in midfield, especially if Matt O'Reilly goes at the death, and we've still got a problem at left back, and I would personally argue at centre back. Goalkeeper's resolved finally. So it's not, I don't feel as panicked as normal, but I do think we need to keep our eye on it, because this board, they do not need, don't give them an inch. And they'll be, don't get me wrong, they'll be looking at the troubles at Ibrox and think that gives us a bit of breathing room. But it's not about that. It's about the Champions League. That's what it needs to be about.
Yeah. Well, your graphic here, Schmeichel and Sinisalo, I think it's easy enough to pronounce his name. I think he did us a favor with his interview where he pronounced it the way we probably would pronounce it, Viljami Sinisalo. I doubt that's exactly it in Finnish, but that's how he said it. So we'll go with that. There'll be no more Navrotsky drama on the channel.
He didn't sound very Finnish anyway, did he?
No, he didn't. Not at all. Yeah, I mean, was Rodgers not... I see what you're saying about Rodgers discussing things, and as the commenter just said there, slapping the ball back into their court. But Paul, do you not also get a sense of unity and sort of Rodgers calling for calm and saying, look, we know what we're doing here. I'm here looking after the team. We've got other people on it. We know the positions we're going to fill. Can you all just relax for a moment? I know you'd love to see action, but there is time. The Celtic fan base is an impatient bunch, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. On that graphic, it's handy because I expect Ida and Bernardo to be on the green side before the window's finished. I think Bernardo, I'm a little bit surprised it's not done already, given us the option to buy. When we've had that in the past, it's been done quite quickly. So I get the frustration there, but I think that'll happen. Adam Ida, I also think will happen. We obviously didn't have a clause to buy, so it makes it a little bit more tricky. Added to that, Norwich have got a new manager, so he's clearly going to want to try and understand the player. Can he make a play to keep him? Does he want to keep him? He's obviously said he wants to look at him and he could be a key part of the squad. He's got to say that. He knows other club. He knows we're interested, so he's not going to say, "Oh, he's not in my plans. Have him for a snip." One of the big things I get a little bit frustrated about, and it's understandable, but I still can't really wrap my head about it, is the kind of double standards that Celtic supporters want to apply. We're not willing to nobody wants to let Matt O'Reilly go for even 25 million. If it's not 26, 27, ideally 30, above 30, you can fuck off, is basically the message from Celtic fans. So by virtue of that is bugger off, come when you're ready. If you've not got an offer, we're not interested. So there's going to be some brinksmanship, there's going to be some negotiation, there's going to be trying to push that to the wire on both sides to get the best deal. If we understand that as fans about our own players, why do we not understand that about players we're interested in? We just go, we've got tons of money, pay whatever they want. That's not how any deal in any business, including football, works. You negotiate as hard as you can. If that takes a few more days or a few more weeks, so be it. I see people losing their shit on Twitter going, move on, it's done. The manager said he wants to stay. It's just madness. I get that. And this is back to my earlier point. I'm trying to practice somewhat of a Zen mindset for the transfer window, because in many other seasons, I've got involved in this nonsense, not to the same degree, but stress myself out on my phone first thing every morning when I wake up. Have we signed anyone yet? No, we haven't. Oh, angry. Like all the negative posts on Twitter. None of us can control, unless you've got either Brendan Rodgers' ear or Michael Nicholson's ear or the head of scouting's ear. None of us in the fan base really know what's going on or can affect anything. And I guarantee you, making noises on Twitter and looking for likes is not achieving anything. I'm sure Michael Nicholson's going, fucking hell, Twitter's blowing up. We better sign somebody. Get somebody in. It's just nonsense, right? So it's been good for my mental health to just go, well, what'll be will be, and I'll be frustrated if we get the same shit we've had before, but we'll support the team and we'll crack on and we'll hope for the best. And the other thing that Ian's right, the team on paper is definitely weaker year on year, but the thing that's missing in that is the nuance of players get better year on year. So there is. And I think we all, it's early days in preseason, but it looks like the team are starting to jet. And we saw that a bit towards the second half of the season, and we went on that run. I think and Rodgers alluded to it in some of his comments, as did some of the players. I think they trust what the manager wants them to do, and I think they understand what they want. And they've had, somebody made it in the comments that they're all Ange's players, so they've had to try and switch mindsets from that to do what Rodgers wants. And I think that's happening. So yeah, I wouldn't say I'm super excited, but I think Ian's right. The goalkeeper situation was a big one that could have been a major issue, and we've done a great job. I think they are. We definitely need a centre back. We've always needed a left back, at least competition or pressure. And we're a striker short, at least one. As I say, I think Ida will deal with that. But yeah, there's time. One of the last point on this is, I see a lot of noise that Ange got stuff done really quickly. So I spent a little bit of time on this morning just to see how quickly he got stuff done and when he got stuff done quick. And I think we'd all agree that post the failure to win 10 in a row, we were in an absolute hole. We needed to basically replace the whole team. And he did that across the first two windows. He replaced 10 of the 11. Only Callum McGregor was a starter from the previous squad. Everyone else got replaced. But of the early signings, we signed the Sheffield Wednesday pair, which is best forgetting about, on the 1st of July 2021. People say not an Ange signing. Abada was signed on the 14th of July. Kyogo was signed on the 19th of July. And Starfelt was signed on the 21st of July. They're the only signings of that window ahead of where we are right now today. And I would argue that we were miles behind where we are today in that window. So I guess this is a slight appeal for some sort of calm in terms of just compare like for like. the windows where we got people in early were when we got the 3 Japanese lads in and they were agreed before the January window, but he was primed for those because he knew those players and their season had finished. That was a pretty easy transaction. Those transactions were pretty easy for him. And then CCV and Jota were converted on the 1st of July 2022, loan to buy. Now, the only thing I would say in all of that is Bernardo should have probably been the same, but for whatever reason, he hasn't been. I still think it'll happen, so I don't think it's the end of the world. Beyond that, most of Ange's best signings were later in the window as well. So I think we can put the rose-tinted spectacles on for stuff that's happened in the past. I think this board's a bit of a nightmare, and the strategy could be way better. And we need to sort recruitment out. We should have done that ages ago when Lol Jr. was punted. We should have sorted that out. That's got a bit quiet. We don't even know who's dealing with that. But I think that there's time, and it's a cliche, but I'll judge it towards the end of the window that we've got more than enough to start the first few domestic games.
Yeah.
Champions League's 2 months away, isn't it?
The call for patience, or I mean, it's not a call for patience. It's just everyone can do whatever they want, react whatever way they want. But I'm trying to just be patient, and I think there was a lesson in that in the whole goalkeeper story, because there was a while not very long ago where our number one was Bain, and everyone was jumping up and down, myself included, going, Jesus, this goalkeeping situation, we've known for ages this needed to be addressed. And then suddenly Schmeichel is announced, and some people, that relieved the pressure. It was like, oh, that's not bad. But for a lot of other people, they're still jumping up and down and going, Jesus Christ, he's older than bloody, the guy we're replacing, and what sort of forward-looking move is this? Oh, Jesus. And people were doing their nut in for 24 or 48 hours until the Sinisalo element became news. And as soon as that became news, suddenly you'd see, wow, this is succession planning, and they're both good goalkeepers. This up-and-coming guy, there's a guy who's bringing everything that Joe Hart brought, and he's probably a better goalkeeper as well. And, wow, that one move in itself looks excellent. So that 24 hours or 48 hours of hand-wringing and gnashing of teeth and all the rest was completely pointless, because the situation was addressed very quickly. And both of those kind of came out of nowhere. There was very little speculation. Do you remember the guy asking Brendan the night before about Schmeichel? When you heard that, you thought, that's a funny thing for the reporter to say. Why is he talking about him? Why is he not talking about Peter Vindal Jensen or Livakovic or one of these other 100 goalkeepers we've been linked with? So we went from absolutely nowhere disaster to, well, here's one thing, and half of the fans were still screaming blue murder, and then a day or two later, an excellent solution to our goalkeeping situation. So I'm trying to take that as a lesson that, it's always darkest before dawn, and the things can switch quite quickly. And I'm confident we're going to get a left back before the window ends. I'm confident we're going to get another striker, and we might buy, say, those two and get a couple of other loanees in, like a winger and a midfielder or something.
What about the money in the bank, Gav? What about the money in the bank?
Yeah, there's lots of it, but we've all got money in our bank accounts. We don't have to spend it.
We have to spend it, Gav. Otherwise, it just sits there, and we can't have that.
Well, I wish they would. Obviously, I'm not apologising for the board either. I wish they would just spend the money that's required to get the players that we need. It's not that hard. I mean, the Adamita thing, just add a couple of million to it and get it done, for Christ's sake. Why not do that? I wish they would.
I think the thing about Ida is, and I've tried to make this point before on social media, and obviously they know where that goes, but is people going, oh, we need players in for preseason. That's the most important, but it isn't, right? Like, if you're a good player, you come into a squad, players move at the drop of a hat. Adam Eden knows the system. He knows every player there, apart from the 2 goalkeepers that have just been signed. He could walk, obviously I want it done sooner, but he could stroll in at any point in this window and slot straight back into that squad and know how he's supposed to function and be fully up and running. He's in pre-season with Norwich. Yeah, he's not our pre-season, but he'll be fit. He'll be ready to go. It's for me, that's not a massive issue. It is annoying and frustrating. For me, I think the bigger issue with signings is the club need to for me, they need to tweak the strategy and be willing to bump wages up, because it's all well and good saying we've got money in the bank, spend 6, spend 7, spend 8, spend 10, but you spend that amount of money, there's a certain wage bracket that comes with that, and you can't just pay one outlier a higher wage. It's going to have to incrementally move the whole squad up by, $5,000 or each a week. You move the whole squad by $5,000 a week, and you're talking millions across one season. And that adds up. Now we've got that, but there's definitely a balancing act on how quickly and how far you move that. I think we should have been doing that before now. Like we don't pay much more in wages than we did when Henrik Larsson was in play, and the revenue streams the club's bringing in now are significantly higher. So
Look,
I think we're still too cautiously.
Sorry, the very fair criticism, I think, is we are an injury to Kyogo away from having a really difficult first game of the season. And I think that's kind of ultimately what drives everyone's kind of panic. You can say that about left back as well, right? You could say maybe someone could fill in or whatever, but realistically, the Kyogo one is a big one, and that I think that is legitimate, and I think that does fuel a lot of the we're only a couple of ways. We're Matt O'Reilly going away from that midfield not being as effective. Yeah, but we've got Hatate and Home to maybe come in as a makeshift if we need stuff. That doesn't happen in the forward line, probably doesn't happen at left back. So that's the bit that I can see legitimate. But I agree with you, Paul. I think it's just a case of there's a lot of time left in the window. We all wish they would spend the money and get the stuff done, but we don't have the background. The only thing I'd point back to is, as Rodgers has outlined, he knows what he wants. The board knows what he wants. And there are people at the club who are paid good money to make sure that what they want and what they need come in. So we'll find out over the next month if they're successful or not. And if they're not, then the questions have to be asked.
He's made it abundantly clear where the sort of buck lands on all of that. Spot on.
There's Casper Schmeichel replacing Joe Hart. If you saw that.
That's quality. I've never seen that, but that's a beauty.
I'm just going to keep flicking through some pictures while you talk here.
There's a valid point on the whole striker thing. That's absolutely spot on. But I think Roger's comments were really interested in that. He wants 2 first-choice strikers. So to me, that's Kyogo and Ida, horses for courses, and a number 3 striker. And he said 2 first choice, or 2 1s, 2 9s, and a third. I wouldn't be surprised if we get the third and first. If we get this Belgian sort of forward player who I think he can play all across the front line, that probably fills that problem. He competes for a wing spot with the others. Probably Kuhn. We haven't really touched on him, but one game was, one swallow doesn't make a summer, but he was absolutely brilliant against City. And so a good preseason under his belt. Maybe he's a different player this season. That's certainly the hope. He certainly looked more like a player that we thought we were getting. I guess the caveat to that is how many teams and domestically will sit that high? None. So you might see some of that kind of quality running in behind and passing in behind in Europe. But it was certainly positive. But yeah, I think if we sign an attacking player, like a winger that can play across the front line, like this Belgian kid, then maybe that fit, that sorts that problem, and maybe we get that in before. If we get that in Ida, that I think the front line, there's enough there with some of the other guys to sort of come up a bit.
Yeah, we need to keep moving with things. Ian, do you want to talk quickly about this graphic that you created?
Yeah, that was just a bit of a, going when we were talking about the squad getting weaker year on year. When we look at something like this, you could argue that O'Reilly and AJ are the only ones that have kind of been a success in terms of replacement. A couple of question marks over the yellow. I would personally argue that Moy hasn't really been replaced. Pam and Yang nowhere near the level of Jota, don't look like they will be. Starfelt not really been replaced. Even if you look at, Giamakis was replaced by O, who wasn't good enough, and he's gone and he's not replaced. and Julian getting replaced by Lagerbielke. I mean, again, he's not been seen. So I think that's it. But we just need to wait and see. I think what we're saying there about Rodgers even talking about having the extra strikers, he's taken on board the model that Celtic want, and he's obviously thinking to himself, well, this is how this model becomes a success. We have the succession plan. So he's done it with the goalkeeper. His way to get the goalkeeper is have that experience, have the young person ready to come in. His way of doing it with the strikers is have the two top strikers and have that young one coming in. So you can kind of already see what he's trying to do, and I think we can all get behind that and all support it. It's just we wish it was a bit quicker and with a bit better quality maybe than we've seen under Mark Law.
And where does Stephen Welsh fit into all of this? That's the question.
At the wind up is where it fits.
Do you know what I absolutely love, because I don't my bio says that it's fact checked by the Daily Record and that I'm the Love Island winner from 2002, and I just love that sometimes that people just don't get that this is a wind up, because I don't even. This to me is mental. I mean, like Stephen Welsh, I like Stephen Welsh. He's a good Celtic lad, or someone you could say that. But he shouldn't really be anywhere near the team. I would say he's on a par with Scales. It's just that Scales can stay fit. Stephen Welsh can't. But him and Scales are really, you're looking at fourth choice. They should be the fourth choice, and Welsh should maybe be there for the coefficient. I think it's an area we really do need to improve. Do I think we're going to improve it? I think no. I think that'll probably be last on Brendan Rodgers' list, given the sheer amount that he's got available. We'll need to see. But no, this was a bit of fun. Sometimes I have a kind of an enjoyment of doing something like this. I just like cook up a little thing, and then it's fun to let it go out. But this one really
clickbait. For those listening, we should say this is a tweet where you're praising Stephen Welsh and saying he could be a good partner for CCV if he stays fit. Not many of the responses were in agreement with that.
The thing is, Gav, if I really wanted to go in and like go hard on clickbait, I think it would be exceptionally easy. That's a really light one. I wish I was working for the Daily Record, because it would be easy. It would be easy at this time of year. So yeah, but I mean, this is probably a good, indication of what people think about our centre backs as well, right? Because there's a lot in there.
Absolutely. Now, to make ourselves feel better about our managed decline, let's talk about what's going on over in the other side of the city. I mean, it's mayhem, isn't it? It's absolute madness.
Delicious.
They are getting rid of so many players. Huh?
It's almost like mismanagement and overspending has a downside. Like, selling shares for pennies, paying mediocre players big wages, judging them on like getting the battle fever or being the people isn't really like conducive or a sustainable model. So, and Clement, I think we actually maybe discussed it when he came in. He seemed like a guy who had a bit of an ego to him. And I think we're definitely seeing that. When you've got a lot of the senior players wanting away, Cantwell asking to leave, I would say that dressing room, like they're saying here, has he lost the dressing room?
Well, has he lost the dressing room? I mean, there's nobody going to be left in the dressing room by the time he's done. I don't know whether he's being a good, strong, positive manager, getting out all these shite bags, or is he just going to leave them in just such a dire state? Because, Barisic and Lundstrom have already gone, right? Now, Goldson, Lammers, Hadji, Cantwell, Tavernier, Sima, probably they can't afford. Maybe also Dessers. These aren't great players. We all know that. But, they did something for that team. They produced things against lower opposition. Like, where's whatever talent pool they have, that's a lot of it is being booted out the door unceremoniously in return for very small amounts of money, which they can do a limited amount with.
He's also said, Gav, that he is like the board lied to him, Clement. Like only a couple of weeks ago, he said I was pitched a completely different process and like development plan and stuff like this. So I mean, I don't know because I've never been in the position, but if someone offered me a job, told me all these things, and then I get in and they suddenly turned around and changed it all, were selling the players, there was a lot more problems than I thought. I don't know how I'd act.
It's happened to me once. It's happened to me once. I was offered a job with and on day one I walked in. You know how we told you we were going to do it like this? I've changed my mind. We're going to do it like this. You're screwed. You're kind of set up for failure from day one almost. But you've uprooted yourself. That was me coming to Australia actually, and thankfully pivoted and moved on 6 months later. But you haven't really got much choice but to crack on, but you kind of know in your heart of hearts it's never really gonna work. So yeah,
are you putting in 100%, Paul? Are you putting in 100%, or are you just looking for the best way out?
I think you're kind of split. You're probably initially you're giving it everything you can, and then you realize the writing's kind of, you were right, the writing is on the wall, and then you're kind of like, well, where's my escape hatch? So I don't want to dwell too much on these lot, but they're a basket case.
That's what this section is. So let's dwell.
Well, yeah,
you have permission to dwell.
I need to be gone. I've got an appointment elsewhere. But look, I think the thing is, it's great that this is a shambles. That added to the stadium nonsense and the waste of money that'll come to, and the lack of time there. I still think we just want to be, concentrating on ourselves, and there is a danger that our board, as we know how they can be, but the penny is finally dropping for some of their fans, which is it's a weird phenomenon for them to see that they finally realize that they're in an absolute shambles. I think that it's not really it is a fire sale, right? The sale is not really to raise the cash that's coming in, because that is minimal. It's to get wages off, like Goldson on 38 or 40 odd grand, something ridiculous. These guys at the back end of their career are on silly money. But the problem is there's once they go, the point I read the other day is they're getting rid of the ones they're getting rid of first are the ones that have actually contributed. We joke about Tavernier and disappointing, and he's over captain of the club during our most successful period, but his goals and assists aren't going to be easily replaced. And yeah, they'll free up wages, but how are they're gonna have to use the limited funds they've got really creatively to get any kind of quality in that can somehow compete, all against the backdrop of Champions League qualifiers imminently, no home stadium, all of that shambles. It's the chickens are coming home to roost, and we'll enjoy the fallout. But I think the funniest thing for me is their fan base. Some of them are still deluded, but some of their fan base finally feeling the drop of the penny, going, we're kind of fucked.
And I see a lot of Celtic fans also saying that they're not comfortable with winning the pre-season cup.
No, because we rarely win it.
We're supposed to lose that and then win the actual.
We're supposed to lose that convincingly. I remember when we won the pre-season cup, literally when we beat Spurs at Wembley. I was at that game. When I was kind of down that way. Was that 2009, 10, something like that? The Tony Mowbray season. And we had we had a brilliant preseason, and then we all know how that panned out. So I don't think this is going to turn into a similar effort, but I don't worry too much about preseason, but they do look shambolic. I kind of just want us to focus on getting our own shit in order, and we've got a real good opportunity. I think we play them in the 4th game of the season. Like, we've got a really good opportunity. They play Hearts away. You'd expect the Jambos to roll over like they always do, but you never know.
Going for second place this year.
You could be winning that game and going, more than 3 points ahead in the fourth game of the season, and then the pressure. We know what happened to Beale. I could see the same kind of thing happening if he hasn't already walked by.
Aberdeen have got a good manager now who'll sort them out.
Mm-hmm.
I would not be. I think Aberdeen and Hearts are going to be a good challenge this year, just in general. And if I was a Rangers fan, I'd be looking at the pair of those. Like, I'd be looking at Aberdeen and I'd be looking at Hearts and be thinking to myself, look, second place is on a sugary peg. It really is on a sugary peg for them.
I think on another podcast I called the season last year on about week 7, and I was told that was extremely premature, etc., etc. But obviously,
not for the first time you've been told that. Let's move it on to your choices.
Yeah, let's just come back to standards, right? I think, we've got a lot of players that come up here and they want all that attention, but they can handle none of the pressure. And it's not really been seen better than Joey Barton and Todd Cantwell. I mean, I remember Todd Cantwell, like, after taking a beating off of us, they went and beat St. Mirren the next week, and he's there doing the gritty. So, we talk about standards. There's no doubt what Brendan Rodgers expects. There's no doubt what the fan base expects in terms of Celtic. I think the Rangers that we knew, the old Rangers, the pre-2020, 2012 Rangers, they had similar standards. This new incarnation of Rangers, Cantwell is really a symbol of that. There's not really the same sort of standards there. So,
yeah, so that's their careers ended up here. Paul, you went for something similar?
I was one of them. I think I sent you loads, but yeah, just a mouthpiece. Do you know what I mean? Like, how he got elevated to be, the player that they thought he was going to be. It shows you how lacking they are in any kind of quality that this fraud was deemed to be, the guy that the team should be built around. And Ian touched on it with the whole, because he took bottles off Hatate. I think he played a couple of, I think I've never watched much of him, but other than against us, and he's looked pretty dreadful. I think there's probably a bit of ability there, but there's not the right attitude. There's not the right application. And he goes into his shell when he's put under pressure. The 56 on the shorts, all that bollocks, like just that, and all the social media nonsense, just an ego out of control. And the fact that fan base gravitated to him and grappled to him and sort of hoped, but beyond all hope, that he might be the savior is just tells you how far they've fallen and what a mess they are. Because just an absolute, joker, an absolute fraud. And, in a year or two, nobody will remember him. Much like Barton, he'll be a figure of fun that'll Ian will be rolling out in various content and memes.
100%. I will not forget Todd Cantwell. I can guarantee I will not forget him.
Craig White's is a legend for saying smash the button, guys, because unlike other channels, we don't bloody annoy you with that as much as they do. But please do smash the button.
Like and subscribe.
Yes. Share it with other Celtic fans. If you think this is a good show, I'm sure you know other Celtic fans, let them know. You can reference our summer season of evergreen content. They can check all that out if they want some Celtic content that isn't the same old. All right, guys. Well, I think that just about does it. We have to let Paul go. So thank you very much. It was good to talk through some of those issues. Next week, by the way, we are due to have 3 of our CSC friends from US and A joining us and sharing with us all their videos and pictures and talking to us about the events of the tour and all, because as we already mentioned, they're having the time of their lives over there. So we're going to hear it firsthand from them. So that'll be awesome. Looking forward to that. Proper American episode next week. But for this week, thank you very much indeed, Paul in Perth.
Thank you.
And Ian in Cardiff. Until next time, thanks everyone. Hail, hail.
Hail, hail.
Oh, he is off. He's quick off the mark, isn't he?
We're still live.